Cassie Jenkins hadn't meant to start a war, but her mama had always been what folks around Millerton called a force of nature waiting on a lightning rod. 3 days into their family vacation to Myrtle Beach, a trip Cassie had suggested as a way to mend some fences after her divorce, and Eleanor Jenkins had managed to criticize everything from Cassie's choice of swimsuit, "At your age, honey?" to how she parent her teenage daughter Lily. But it was the credit card thing that broke the camel's back. Well, not just any camel, a stubborn, sun-baked Georgia camel that hadn't seen water in about 47 years. "I don't understand why we're eating at these fancy places," Eleanor had said that morning, flipping through a tourist brochure while the air conditioner in their rental condo wheezed like an asthmatic bulldog. "There's a perfectly good Cracker Barrel just down the road." Cassie had busied herself with her coffee. Dark and bitter kinda how she felt most mornings now since Tom left. "Mama, this is supposed to be a special trip." "Special don't have to mean expensive," Eleanor sniffed, her reading glasses perched on the end of her nose like a bird ready to take flight. "You know what your daddy always said about money. Money doesn't grow on trees, but debt sure sprouts like kudzu," Cassie finished, her voice flat as day-old soda. She'd heard it approximately 9,000 times growing up in their double-wide outside of Millerton. Lily slouched at the kitchen counter, her face buried in her phone. At 15, she'd perfected that particular teenage art of being physically present while mentally vacationing on another planet. Her dark hair dyed black last month in what Cassie suspected was a direct response to the divorce fell across her face. "Grammy, the restaurants were my idea," Lily said without looking up. "Mom said we could each pick activities." Eleanor's eyes narrowed like a hawk spotting a field mouse. "Well, I'm sure your mother appreciates you being so generous with her money." And there it was. The oldest Jenkins family tradition passive-aggressive commentary served up fresher than Sunday biscuits. "Actually," Cassie said, setting her coffee mug down with a little too much force, causing the dark liquid to slosh over the rim like pond water over a dam. "I'm doing just fine, Mama." And she was. Mostly. After the divorce, she'd thrown herself into her freelance graphic design business with the same determination she'd once used to grow prize-winning zucchinis for the county fair. Her client list had expanded faster than Preacher Wilson's waistline after church potlucks. But Eleanor didn't need to know all that. She'd been skeptical of Cassie's computer doodling from day one. "I worry, that's all," Eleanor said, her voice softening in that way that always made Cassie feel about 8 years old again. "Single mama, trying to keep up appearances." Lily's head snapped up, her dark-lined eyes flashing. "Mom's not keeping up appearances. She's successful." Cassie felt a burst of warmth in her chest. There'd been plenty of door slamming and eye-rolling since the divorce, but occasionally her daughter reminded her they were still on the same team. But Cassie's moment of maternal pride evaporated faster than morning dew when Eleanor reached over and patted her hand. "Of course she is, sugar. Your mama's always been creative." The way she said it made creative sound like a particularly unfortunate medical condition. That evening, they headed to the Blue Marlin, one of those oceanfront restaurants where the prices matched the view. Cassie had made reservations weeks ago, knowing Lily loved seafood. The hostess led them to a table right by the windows, where the Atlantic stretched out like God's own front yard, the setting sun painting everything in shades of gold and pink. "This is awesome, Mom," Lily whispered, her usual teenage indifference momentarily forgotten as she gazed out at the water. Eleanor, however, was studying the menu like it contained secret government codes. $26 for shrimp? Highway robbery. They swim right out there for free. Cassie took a deep breath. Don't engage. That's what her therapist, another expense her mother would definitely not approve of, always advised. The waiter, a college-aged kid with a smile as practiced as a politician's, appeared tableside. "Can I start you ladies with something to drink?" "Just water for the table," Eleanor answered before anyone else could speak. Lily slumped in her chair, disappointment flashing across her face. Cassie knew she'd been eyeing the virgin strawberry daiquiris mentioned on the specials board. "Actually," Cassie corrected, "my daughter would like one of those fancy strawberry drinks, and I'll have an iced tea." "Mama?" "Water's fine," Eleanor said tightly. Her fingers spotted now with age but still strong from decades of gardening and quilting drummed against the white tablecloth. After they ordered their meals, with Eleanor audibly gasping at Lily's choice of the seafood platter, Cassie excused herself to the restroom. She needed just 5 minutes away from her mother's disapproving glances. The bathroom was all polished marble and fancy soaps that smelled like what Cassie imagined rich people's gardens must smell like. When she returned, the mood at the table had darkened like storm clouds rolling in over a hayfield. Lily was staring fixedly out the window, and Eleanor's lips were pressed so thin they'd nearly disappeared. "What did I miss?" Cassie asked, settling back into her chair. "I was just telling Lily about financial responsibility," Eleanor said, her voice syrupy sweet. "About how sometimes people spend money they don't have just to impress others. Lord, give me strength." Cassie took a long sip of her tea, wishing it was something stronger. She remembered suddenly how her daddy used to handle Eleanor's mood. She'd whistle "Blue Moon of Kentucky" under his breath until she'd either laugh or storm off. Neither option seemed available to Cassie right now. "Mom's not trying to impress anyone," Lily said, still looking out at the ocean where the first stars were appearing. "She works hard for her money." "Well, honey bunch, so did my Harold, but he never saw the need for $20 cocktails." "It's $9, and it doesn't have any alcohol in it," Lily muttered. The food arrived a blessed interruption, and for a while they ate in what passed for peace in the Jenkins family occasional comments about the meal punctuated by longer stretches of loaded silence. But when the waiter appeared with the leather folder containing the check, Eleanor pounced on it like a cat on a June bug. "Let me just see what damage we've done," she said, flipping it open. Her eyebrows shot up so high they nearly disappeared into her silver-gray bangs. $147? For one meal? Cassie reached for her purse. "I've got it, Mama." And that's when it happened. Eleanor snatched Cassie's small crossbody bag right out of her hands. The move was so unexpected, so utterly unlike her proper Southern mother, that Cassie just sat there, mouth slightly open. "Your card's paying for everything on this trip, isn't it?" Eleanor demanded, already unzipping the purse. Something shifted in Cassie then. Maybe it was the 2 glasses of sweet tea. Maybe it was 3 days of backhanded comments. Or maybe it was just that at 43, she was finally ready to stop being treated like a child who couldn't be trusted with scissors. "Then this alert from the bank should be fun," she said, her voice calmer than she felt. Eleanor had already pulled out Cassie's wallet, a handmade leather one Lily had given her for Christmas, and was fumbling for a credit card when her phone dinged with an incoming text. She automatically glanced at it, her face changing faster than Georgia weather. "What?" Eleanor's voice rose to a pitch that had heads turning from 3 tables away. "What is this?" The text was from Millerton First National, where Eleanor had banked since before Cassie was born. The one where Cassie's name had been added to Eleanor's accounts after Harold died 4 years ago, just in case something happened, Eleanor had said. "What's what, Mama?" Cassie asked, butter wouldn't melt innocent, though she knew exactly what her mother was seeing. This says you just deposited $10,000 into my account," Eleanor hissed, her face flushed. Lily's eyes went wide. "Mom?" The waiter chose that moment to hover nearby. "Is everything satisfactory with your meal, ladies?" "Just fine," Cassie said, taking her wallet back from her mother's suddenly limp fingers and pulling out her credit card. "We'll take the check now, thanks." After the waiter left, Eleanor stared at her daughter like she'd grown a second head. "Where'd you get that kind of money? Did Tom?" "Tom didn't give me a cent beyond what the court ordered," Cassie interrupted, signing the receipt with a flourish that felt downright rebellious. "Which, by the way, wasn't much. This is my money, Mama, from my work." Eleanor's mouth opened and closed like a fish on a dock. "Your little computer pictures?" Cassie took a deep breath. The restaurant around them hummed with conversation and clinking glasses, but at their table, it felt like the air before a thunderstorm. "My graphic design business grossed just under 6 figures last year," she said quietly. "I didn't tell you because you've never thought much of what I do. And because part of her, the part that still wore pigtails and wanted to please her mama more than anything, had been afraid. Afraid that no matter how successful she became, it would never be enough for Eleanor Jenkins, who measured worth in jam jars preserved and quilts hand-stitched. "But why put money in my account?" Eleanor asked, her voice small now. "Because you've been worried about that roof repair," Cassie said. "And because—" Here she faltered, the words sticking like biscuit dough to her fingers. Because despite everything, you're my mama. And I love you. Lily, witnessing this unfamiliar vulnerability between the women in her family, looked as stunned as if the ocean had suddenly changed direction. I don't understand, Eleanor said, her fingers trembling slightly as she placed her phone face down on the table, like hiding the notification might make it less real. You're telling me your little website jobs pay that well? Cassie felt a familiar spark of irritation. They're not little website jobs, Mama. I design entire brand identities for companies. I've got clients in New York and Chicago now. My work was featured in Digital Design Monthly last spring. The magazine that came to the house? I thought that was just something you subscribed to. Lily snorted. Grammy, Mom was on the cover. Eleanor's face went through a complicated series of expressions, like a garden going through all 4 seasons at once. But you never said. Would you have been interested if I had? Cassie asked, suddenly tired. This conversation felt like trying to turn a tractor in mudlots of effort for minimal progress. But something unexpected happened then. Eleanor's eyes welled up with tears. I thought you were struggling, she whispered. I've been so worried about you and Lily. Understanding dawned on Cassie slowly, like morning light filtering through bedroom curtains. Her mother's penny pinching, her constant comments about expenses, even her disapproval of the restaurant choices, it hadn't been judgment. Well, not entirely judgment. It had been fear. Oh, Mama, Cassie said, reaching across the table to take her mother's hand. It felt smaller than she remembered, the skin paper-thin over blue veins. When had that happened? A memory surfaced suddenly in her at the kitchen table late at night, sewing patches on Cassie's jeans by the dim yellow light above the stove. We'll make these last another season, she'd said, though Cassie knew money was tight after Daddy's truck needed repairs. Eleanor had always been the one to make things stretch, to turn nothing into something. She'd grown up during harder times, when $1 meant the difference between eating and going hungry. I should have told you, Cassie admitted. I guess I wanted to prove something first. And I should have asked instead of assuming, Eleanor replied, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. Your daddy always said I had more opinions than a room full of preachers. Lily, watching this exchange with the intensity of a nature documentary narrator, suddenly grinned. Does this mean we can order dessert? Because I saw someone with a chocolate thing that looked bigger than my head. And just like that, the tension dissolved. They laughed all 3 generations of Jenkins women, in a way they hadn't in longer than Cassie could remember. They ordered that chocolate monstrosity in 3 forks, and didn't even flinch at the price. Later, walking along the beach with their pants rolled up and the warm Atlantic water lapping at their ankles, Eleanor linked her arm through Cassie's. You know, she said, watching Lily run ahead to examine a shell, you remind me of my mama sometimes. Sturdy as an oak, but bendy as a willow when the storms come. Coming from Eleanor, it was perhaps the highest compliment imaginable. I had good examples, Cassie replied, feeling something unknot inside her chest. Something that had been tight for so long she'd forgotten what it felt like to breathe easy. The next morning, Eleanor insisted on making breakfast in their rented condo. She'd brought her own cast-iron skillet. These rental pans couldn't fry an ant's appetite, and was turning out perfect golden pancakes while humming an old Dolly Parton tune. I've been thinking, she announced as she flipped a pancake with the confidence of a woman who'd done it 10,000 times before. That guest room of mine, the one full of your daddy's old fishing gear and my fabric scraps it, might make a nice home office for you when you visit. Cassie nearly choked on her coffee. You want me to work when I visit? Well, not the whole time, Eleanor said, waving the spatula. But since your job is so portable, and maybe you and Lily might want to stay a bit longer sometimes. Lily, who'd been half asleep over her orange juice, perked up. Could we maybe stay for a few weeks in the summer? Avery moved to her grandma's in Millerton last year, and she's got horses now. Horses, huh? Cassie said, raising an eyebrow at her daughter. Your interest wouldn't have anything to do with that Tanner boy who works at the stables, would it? Lily's cheeks turned pink as Georgia peaches in July. Mom? Eleanor beamed as she set a stack of pancakes in front of Lily. Tanner Wilkes, Marie's grandson? Now there's a polite young man. Helps with the church fundraisers every year. Oh my God, Lily groaned, hiding behind her hair again. But Cassie noticed she didn't deny it. and for the first time she considered that maybe Millerton, the place she'd been so desperate to escape at 18, might have something to offer her daughter. Something screens and city amenities couldn't provide. "We'll think about it," she said, catching her mother's hopeful glance. "Maybe we could do a trial run this summer." That afternoon, they went shopping at the outlet mall, Eleanor's choice of activity. But something had shifted. When Cassie picked up a designer handbag, her mother didn't make a single comment about the price. Instead, she said, "That green would look real nice with your eyes." They bought matching sundresses, not identical, but variations on a theme, like different flowers from the same garden. Even Lily found a dress she didn't hate, though she insisted on pairing it with her chunky black boots. "You look like sunshine and thunderclouds all mixed up," Eleanor told her, adjusting the strap on Lily's shoulder with gentle hands. It was such a perfect description of her tumultuous granddaughter that Cassie had to turn away to hide her smile. In a small boutique that smelled of sandalwood and something exotic, Eleanor paused by a display of delicate silver jewelry. "Your birthday's coming up," she said to Cassie. "Is there anything that catches your eye?" The question was so unexpected that Cassie didn't know how to respond. Her mother had always given practical gifts, kitchen gadgets, gardening tools, once a set of solar-powered outdoor lights that Cassie had actually come to love. "I like those earrings," she said finally, pointing to a pair with twisting silver and small blue stones. Eleanor nodded and called the salesgirl over. "We'll take those," she said decisively, "and gift wrap them, please." "Mama, you don't have to." "Hush now," Eleanor interrupted. "I want to. Besides," she added with a wink that made her look decades younger, "I seem to have come into some money recently." That night, their last in Myrtle Beach, they got takeout from one of the seafood places and ate it on their balcony, watching the waves roll in under a sky streaked with stars. "This was really nice," Lily said, licking ice cream from her fingers. "Like way nicer than I thought it would be." "Everything's better without the drama," Cassie agreed, giving her mother a sidelong glance. Eleanor sniffed, but there was a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I prefer to think of it as animated discussion. Keeps the blood flowing." They laughed together, the sound carrying out over the dark water. Cassie thought about the trip home tomorrow, the long drive back to Atlanta for her and Lily, the drop-off at her mother's place in Millerton. But it didn't feel like an ending anymore, more like turning the page to a new chapter. Later, after Lily had gone to bed, Cassie and Eleanor sat sharing the last of a bottle of sparkling grape juice. "You know," Eleanor said softly, "your daddy would be so proud of you. I am too, even if I'm not always good at saying it." Cassie felt something catch in her throat. "Thank you, Mama." "Just promise me one thing," Eleanor added, her voice somewhere between teasing and serious. "What's that?" "Next time you deposit a small fortune in my account, give an old lady some warning. My heart can only take so many surprises."